No, I don't feel safe. I've been abducted in this country. I've been shot before in this country. My house has been bombed in this country. So I've gone through all manner of hell, but I've never gone through the kind of physical torture that I went through in Tanzania. Do I feel safe? No. Will I stop? I'll never stop. I think I'll stop when I die. When I was being tortured, and I thought it's going to be a waste of life to die in Tanzania. I wish I was thinking about dying in my own country.
ETV Africa News at this hour.
I was telling Bonnie, and maybe this is a question we need to speak about here. Every journalist or activist has that worry of security for our devices, and so in that moment when we thought we are going to be killed, I'm asking myself that at what point do you put your life over the gadgets? As journalists, we are told that there's no story worth your life. So I am thinking there's no gadget worth your life. So as a journalist, I always think that I will not give my gadget willingly if it compromises the security of sources. Because in those governments, in this security, whatever, you have some people that give you information, and those ones you want to protect with your life. Now, for Bonnie's phones, I don't know what was on it, and I was asking, did he think through and assess whether this is worth it? And we had this conversation for the first time because I didn't see him until just yesterday, but one Saturday when I came to Nairobi, and he was giving me this explanation of that we have people we are working with. We have friends in Tanzania. But I'm still saying, I would only, and that's me. I think that's a moment where everyone has to rationalize and think about what's the best. I'm still thinking people we're working with were not working on anything, any crime, any secret. If we were a rebel group that is trying to overthrow these people that should be overthrown, by the way, I would say that I don't want them to find that I was working with Manasseh or with, but there's no crime. Even if they had found that I am in Tanzania with Generali Ulimwengu, they wouldn't find me saying, let's keep the guns here. There's no conversation that is criminal there. Yes, because we are dealing with rogue people, it might endanger them. But I just like to stand in truth. I had been very transparent from the time they asked me that this is what I'm here for. These are people who are colleagues. When they're in trouble, we show up to show solidarity. So if it was in my case, I would have said, okay, you can have them. Look at what I was doing. Look at what we agreed that let's be here for Tundu Lissu's case. But all through that, I thought that was Bonnie's decision to make, not mine. I think everyone here, even you guys, if you are in that sort of situation, it's you to think through it and assess, do maybe a cost-benefit analysis or risk analysis, if it were in my case. And I know you will never find me engaged in crime. So if my phone means saving my life, I'll give it to you. You're not going to find anything that is, So Bonnie can say,
I did not think you were going to be tortured because of the phone. So I thought I'd given Agatha some of my gadgets, and she passed the gadget to someone else. And my problem was, if Agatha says we should give them to, then they pick that other person, then they'll pick another person, and then we'll be all arrested in the same hotel, because all of us in the same hotel. So I thought it was a risk worth taking, but I never thought they were going to torture me, because my arrest was very public. So the gadgets were never found, and some brave Kenyans were able to smuggle them back to the country. Yes.
But there was never any
criminal
such
thing.
warrant also for our... Nothing. So it was all illegal from the start. It was an illegal process.
Yes.
Hi. I'm sorry for what you two went through. You've spoken about seeking for justice. And then I'm wondering, have you filed any kind of complaint against the Tanzanian authorities, or are there plans to pursue any legal action?
So we're filing a case in Tanzanian court. We're going to sue the the Tanzanian state in Tanzania.
And we are going to sue them in every other avenue. Where we will find justice is where, because the international justice process requires that you first exhaust local avenues, and we have to do that. But like I said, we cannot expect justice from Tanzania, but we want to exhaust all other avenues, regional, the EACJ, which unfortunately also sits in Tanzania. And that also makes you wonder if you'll get justice from that, the African court, and political avenues. If there are sanctions for, because for me, I have been saying, let's identify these people and put them out there. If we can get sanctions for them, so we are really trying to say, let's exhaust all avenues and we see where we'll get some sort of remedy. And the lawyers have been working on that. Yeah, so we are going to go everywhere until we find where we can find justice.
Can we get someone else and then yes.
Hi, I'm Betsy Wall for Radio France. Thank you so much for sharing this experience. You mentioned the lack of or delayed response from your respective governments. Do you suspect that they could have known more than what they said?
Well, when Mafole began beating me at the police station with the other officers, Mafole said that he knows about me, that I was involved in the Kenyan protest, and I burnt Kenya's parliament down, and I was a troublemaker. So there was a bit of information from the torturers that could only come from Kenyan authorities. And I think for them to escalate from an arrest to torture, they had to think that my government doesn't care about us. And that's why Agatha was saying that if it wasn't for Kenyans and Tanzanians and Ugandans who spoke about our plight and our arrest, it would have disappeared forever. Our government was complicit in that torture. And if you look at our Foreign Affairs Minister, Mudavadi, when he spoke, he did not apologize to me. He apologized to Tanzanians that we took our bad manners to Tanzania. So it's very clear that our government had a role to play in our torture.
So it's maybe anecdotal. We don't have any proof that they were involved, but there's corroborative evidence or circumstantial. When the president of Tanzania puts out a statement about how we were there to destabilize or something like that, I didn't read it, but the CDF in Uganda, who is also the president's son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, sort of retweets, quotes the tweet and says, that's why she's my favorite. Deal with them or something like that, you know? So while you cannot say he speaks for government, he's part of government, and he said that. But also the fact that they didn't raise a finger, apart from the ambassador of Uganda to Tanzania, who also wasn't acting on behalf of government, but was acting because I have an uncle who was his comrade in the Bush War, because this is also part of the Museveni Bush War. So there are historicals, and he was a former Secretary General for the East African Community, and had called him and said, find my niece and all that. I don't think he did a lot. He corresponded with my family a lot about me, but I don't think it was as government of Uganda. It was an individual who has been asked for a favor by a former comrade. So the government itself does know where is our citizen, what crime have they committed, nothing like that. So that should be enough for someone to think they were accomplices by action or inaction. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Eva from German press agency DPA, thanks very much for sharing. Must have been hard. But do you think that what happened to you, and given the human rights situation in East Africa in general, that it was also as like a warning shot to any human rights actors, not only active in Tanzania but in other countries of the region? See what can happen to you. You're not safe.
Yeah, that that was the purpose of that violence. To warn us, to scare us, to intimidate us, but also to send a message to whoever would like to stand up for their rights or the rights of other East Africans. And I think that's why we are here, to say that we cannot afford to be cowed, to be threatened, to be intimidated. So when they are using sexual violence, sexual rape is associated with shame and stigma. They use that, so they know that it will inflict maximum pain, but also dehumanize and shame you. And it has worked in Tanzania, because people come out and they say, I don't want to be looked at as a rape victim. And I think this time they got wrong people, because I understand enough to know that I am not the one who should be ashamed because of your heinous acts. Shameful. You should be ashamed. And I dare them to publish those videos, because for me, we need them. There will be proof of their criminality. Now, for you to think that you publishing a video where you're doing something as barbaric, as primitive, I am the one who should worry about it, you must be just a sick person or deranged somehow. So that's why we are here, that was done to us, to make sure they instill fear, they intimidate us from doing what we think is the right thing to do. It's not just right, it's necessary. We have to stand up for all of us. Yeah, so that I tell whoever that might have intimidated and slowed down that, there was going to be a cost to this, for this struggle. There's going to be a price we'll have to pay. So it is either you pay that price, or we live in this captivity forever. Yeah.
Yes.
There's this flower organization we have, it's called East African Community, where this should never have happened because you have passports. What do you think this event speaks to the integration of the region? And do you think you'll be unbowed because you went there for Tundu Lissu, whose case again is continuing? Maybe a comment
Today,
on that
actually.
also. And what do you think of EAC, the bloc?
So I think there's integration in atrocities and torture. So Museveni, Ruto, and Suluhu share a playbook on arresting dissenters and activists. So at that level of cooperation, they cooperate, because if you look at the chair of East African Community is Salva Kiir of South Sudan, and South Sudan is a country in strife. There's civil war, and there's no human rights. There are no human rights in South Sudan. So the integration is actually is a mirage. But when it comes to torture and abuse of power, they share tactics. But when it comes to economic integration, there's none. So
So the case of Tundu Lissu, I think
It's today.
Today
It's
happening
ongoing,
today.
yeah.
And I had a conversation with comrades about it yesterday, and I said, if no one goes there, they have achieved exactly what they wanted. But I also understand the need to strategize and find a safe way of still doing that. I hope, even from afar, some of the comrades are following it up to talk about it, to give it the attention it deserves. But I can assure you that, as me, Agatha, I wouldn't stop because of that. I think we will need to have this conversation and say, how do we do it without endangering ourselves, or what happening again? How do we push back? We really have to push back against that. I wasn't in position to follow it up today. Even when you're brave and in what way you need time to heal, we are still recovering from what happened. But I hope that the others are doing something about it. Yeah.
Well, lastly, Paul,
Thank you.
do you feel safe as a human rights activist in East Africa?
No, I don't feel safe. I've been abducted in this country. I've been shot before in this country. My house has been bombed in this country. So I've gone through all manner of hell, but I've never gone through the kind of physical torture that I went through in Tanzania. Do I feel safe? No. Will I stop? I'll never stop. I think I'll stop when I die. When I was being tortured, and I thought it's going to be a waste of life to die in Tanzania. I wish I was thinking about dying in my own country. You know, I spent three nights, 3 days, handcuffed, blindfolded. So there was no stimuli in my mind. So the only thing I had to do is just meditate and think about my life. And I buried myself. I went to my funeral. I had nightmares. But when they let me go, I realized my spirit was not broken. I was afraid that they might kill me. When they were driving that very long distance, I thought I was going to get dumped in the Serengeti to be eaten by wild animals. But that did not happen. And so I have a second chance in life. We both do have a second chance in life. And I think it will be allowing them to win if I stop doing the work that we've been doing. So we'll continue the work we're doing. I think the pain that I have is that my mind hurts. Like there's a lot of stress that I have that was not there before, because we were violated in ways that should never be violated. They did things to us that should never have done to us, and that breaks me, but does not break my spirit. So I might look weak because my body is also weak. I have multiple fractures. I have broken toes on both my left and right foot. I have wounds in my private places, like I have wounds all over my body. And they're healing. And I'll be back in the streets. I think the only thing that can stop me from doing this work is death. So as long as I'm alive, I'll continue. Even when I'm scared, I'll still do it. Yeah. And also think about the trauma that my kids are going through, because to explain that I was sexually violated for going to attend a court case doesn't make sense for anyone, you know. There's nothing that makes sense about what happened to us. And there's nothing that makes sense that as a citizen of this country, my government is silent about it. There's nothing normal about that. I was violated by another state. And instead of getting an apology from the government, it's our government apologizing to my torturers. That pains me. And I think that's the reason why I must organize to remove this government from power, because it has to go. Yes. So as long as I'm alive, we will work towards removing this government, as long as I can breathe. Yeah, that's what he said. That's where he needs to go. Are there any other questions? There's a statement.
Any other questions?
There's a statement by comrades about the state of human rights in East Africa that needs to be shared. And then there are two people, Hussein Khalid and Willy Mutunga, former Chief Justice, who were deported from Tanzania, and they can share their part. And then we'll share some documents. We'll share some documents with you guys so that you can have what you went through. Thank you so much for listening to us, and may the struggle continue. This was hard to do, but thank you.
Thank you.